Hello everyone, welcome to another review on the JayBee and Milly channel. I am JayBee and of course with me is Milly.
Hi.
We have Dan,
Hi.
we have Sophie,
Hey.
and today we're going to be reviewing Scooby Doo The Mystery Begins, which is a very nostalgic one for me. We're not going to jump into any plot summaries as such, but we are going to go along the plot as it does happen. These are formatted a bit like our October/Scooptober reviews, so if you like that format, enjoy it. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you. It just is what it is. Like, welcome to the show. So, Milly, as
Yeah.
you are the grand note taker, would you like to kick us off, or would you like to direct the conversation?
Yeah, I think before we get into the plot, I think this is a one where you want to discuss the characters first, right? Because this isn't just typical, classic Scooby. This is a live action adaptation.
Tell me more.
There's an entire different level to discuss on casting, wardrobe, other things as well. So I guess kind of going through character by character, I kind of want to throw out there, firstly, that I think Nick is one of the best Shaggies we've ever had. I think he's absolutely fantastic for the role. I think he looks like Shaggy. I think he sounds like Shaggy. And I think something else that's kind of particularly strong about him is here we didn't really see a Shaggy wardrobe, I don't think. Quite often you see him in like a blue top and stuff like that. And yet, because of how he looks, it was definitive that that's who he's meant to be. So yeah, I'm gonna kick off by saying about Nick. JayBee, what's your thoughts?
See, it's so strange because when you're going, and this is like the context that I watched it, I'm sure it's the context that a lot of people watch it. It's a little bit like an iconic Doctor Who regenerating, and then you get someone new coming because you had Matthew Lillard in the 2002 and 2004 movies, who is quite literally the cartoon character brought to life. And so when you're so used to that iteration, I think it's so easy to look at Nick's portrayal, especially in the first few sequences here when he's not really the Shaggy we know and love because there's no Scooby at that point. I think it's easy to write him off as being a less than Matthew Lillard or just someone new. I do feel like there is even a risk of that happening at the start here. But once he meets Scooby, once you see his dynamic with Scooby and the rest of the gang, I think you're right. I think he's on that level as well, which in consideration, considering that this was the Warner premiere, the fact that they nailed the casting again, I think is amazing. So I do agree with you, but I wouldn't blame people for being a bit hesitant because you go from perfect casting, it's always going to be a bit difficult to think about someone else taking on that mantle. But yeah, I think he does incredible.
Okay, and Dan, what's your thoughts on Shaggy?
Yeah, no, I love Nick as Shaggy. I think whenever it comes to Scooby-Doo, the one character other than Scooby, obviously, that you have to get right is Shaggy, because he's the one who always appears, and he's right next to Scooby as being just as iconic. So I think it's great that both times they've done a live action, they've nailed Shaggy. Like, that is the one that absolutely got perfect. And I think what I like about Nick's is it's pretty much how I'd picture Shaggy, because I don't actually know how old Matthew was when he played him, but he seems obviously like a much more adult Shaggy. But obviously, I think in the original show, Shaggy's supposed to be a teenager, and I think Nick really sort of personifies that. And I agree with what you said. When I first ever saw this one, I was quite surprised that he wasn't always in the green shirt. I think in the sequel he is in Curse of the Lake Monster, but in this one he wears like a blue one, he wears a red one, which I suppose could be a nod to red shirt Shaggy. But I think Nick just personifies Shaggy so well that it doesn't matter what he wears. He's got the voice down perfect and he looks the part. So yeah, Shaggy was actually I'm never usually the biggest Shaggy fan, but Shaggy was actually a big highlight of this film for me. I loved his relationship with Scooby. I thought it was the cutest. I loved their little when it was one of the songs that plays Ann Arbor, You and Me, and that was just one of the cutest little scenes between them. So yeah, I love Shaggy in this one.
Yeah, they certainly do a really good job of building up a dynamic here. I know people always kind of talk about how Matthew Lillard kind of acted to thin air really well, but I think some people overlook how well Nick did pretty much the same thing. And like you were saying about the outfit, I'm pretty sure it's just at the awards at the end where you see him in that classic green t-shirt, and even then he's got a jacket over it. Sophie, what's your thoughts on the overall Shaggy of this movie?
Yeah, I totally agree with you guys. I I think being a prequel, like an origin story, kind of like, I know it's not a follow-on from the original 2 movies, but they're younger characters in this one, and I think he really fits that theme really well. Definitely one of my favorite iterations of Shaggy in this one. I think just, you know, like Dan said, Harry interacts with Scooby. Oh yeah, I'm really impressed with that one, actually. That's my favorite castings from this lineup.
I think I might be inclined to agree with you. And I guess the next kind of one I want to go on to, and JB's probably going to have to tell me I've pronounced this incorrectly, but Hayley Kiyoko
Oh no, that
as
was
Velma.
good.
Was that good?
I thought you were gonna like mispronounce Daphne or Velma. Then I was like, how the heck
No.
can you be? We've been doing a Scooby podcast for like 5 years. What is this?
No, I mean, I must say again, another, I'm going to say brilliant casting. I think she fits in perfectly. I also don't completely dislike what they did with Velma's look here. I think they changed it to some extent, but there's one look that they changed more that we'll be discussing in a minute. But I think it was kind of recognizable enough as Velma. I'd probably liked a little bit more orange, but it was still there. But in terms of her acting, I think she was a brilliant Velma. You certainly got that kind of, I don't know, intelligent, know-it-all sort of vibe.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I think because I'm so non-purist, I don't really think about how people are translated into new adaptations versus, say, Where Are You? And so I'm thinking to myself, as a translation of the original 1969 version, I don't think that this is exactly what you'd be looking for, but I'm the type of person, I'd say that for Linda Cardellini as well, right? But what I'd also say about Linda Cardellini is it's a new twist, a new spin on that kind of base level character, and it builds something that and this is probably a hot take, but I actually do think I like more than the 1969 Velma, because I just think she has a bit more endearingness, because she's meant to be the youngest one, and I think that's shown here as well. She's kind of like the baby of the group a bit, and I think that's a good direction to take it. So I really like Hayley Kiyoko in there.
Okay, perfect. And Dan, how about you?
Yeah, I'm not usually the biggest Velma fan either, so I was quite surprised watching this for the first time how much I love both Shaggy and Velma. I loved Hayley as Velma. I think she's really sweet. And I think it's nice because you don't often, throughout the franchise, Fred and Daphne change a lot depending on the incarnation, whereas Shaggy and Velma usually stay the same. What I like about this Velma is they go a different direction, like with Mindy Cohn's version or Linda Cardellini, she's quite a sarcastic character. Whereas this one, she seems just really sweet. She's very shy. She reminds me of sort of a pup named Scooby Doo, Velma. She's very smart, but she's very sort of awkward. But I really like that. I thought she was very endearing. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Hayley's version of Velma.
Okay, perfect. And Sophie?
Outfit wise, not the biggest fan. I know we've got, another member which I'll go into, but I think it's quite, it makes it quite dated. Like some pieces are quite timeless classics and you never get old of it. But with like Velma and another certain member of Mystery Inc., which we'll get onto, they're quite dated looks for me. So it kind of like keeps in that time period. But another thing that I really like about Velma is the interaction between her and Fred in this movie. There's definitely quite a lot of interactions between them, which they don't really, explore that a lot in Scooby Doo, and just how they incorporated in this movie, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Certainly, they develop different dynamics between members of the gang we don't often see interact here, which was certainly really refreshing. And like you were saying, there is perhaps one member of the gang whose look has aged more than anybody else's, and I think that's possibly fair to say the outfit choices for Daphne. Now, I must say, brilliantly cast. Kate, absolutely fantastic. Not a single thing against her. But how they dressed her, I feel like this movie has aged more than like 1969 Scooby. In that 1969 Scooby is so, it's block colours, things like that don't exactly have something to kind of age mark them too much. Even 2002, you could get away with that easier now than I think the looks they chose for Daphne and Velma here. I think it is quite reminiscent of that era, that kind of American movie-esque look. But in terms of Kate herself, fantastic. Brilliant Daphne, really fit the character well. One of my least favorite Daphne looks in terms of the outfits in this movie anyway. JayBee, Daphne.
I mean, what can you say? Like, this is one of my canon events. It's one of the reasons why I am who I am today. But I agree with the outfits, and it's such a shame because
Just wait, there's a reason I put Daphne before Robbie and Melton. That's so I could see what you said, so be careful.
Because the outfit on anyone else, like it's just a shame, right? But we don't think about these characters in universe going, oh yeah, Daphne's stylist really let her down in this one or something. Like in universe, this Daphne, at least in this movie, canonically, has quite a dated or poor fashion sense. And given that she's meant to be the fashionista of the group, it's a bit like it's such a shame because obviously it's nothing to do with the acting and everything to do with the wardrobe, the stylist, and it is a shame because that fashionista is so much a part of Daphne's character. The fact that that part has just been fumbled is a bit of a shame. But again, like with my hot takes, for all I don't put too much weight on this because I'm not a purist, I think from translation to translation, based on the 1969 show, I do feel like Kate Melton has more classic Daphne than Sarah Michelle Gellar's version does. Again, that's not really a comment on which one's better, which one's worse, but I think translation-wise, Kate Melton does a better job as that 1969 Daphne to me. And yeah, I just think it's great. One thing I do appreciate about her performance is the humbleness of her performance, which I think is good, especially considering she's like the rich one and she has the staff and all those cars, and the fact that they got the fact that Daphne is someone of wealth and privilege, but she doesn't rub it in anyone's face. She isn't a nasty person because of it. I think that's good. It's just the wardrobe.
Okay. You did quite well there, JayBee. Sophie, I feel like you've been dying to speak about this, so Daphne.
I mean, apart from the wardrobe, the whole look, Kate's a really good Daphne. I'll go back to JB's point on being humble. Only a small part, but at the beginning of the movie, you know, Velma's all into science, Fred's like sport, and they bring up that Daphne's into theatre. And we haven't really heard that much from the franchise, and to incorporate that into kind of her character development, I thought that was quite a unique take, and I think it did add to Daphne's character quite a lot. But I mean, Kate did a brilliant performance, but it was just the outfit. Really dated and quite ugly at some points.
Not the best.
See, actually, that drama thing is good though, because you could almost imagine a version of Zombie Island Daphne did drama and theatre work as part of like presenting stuff. I think that's cool.
I do think they kind of go out of their way to establish a character for Fred and Daphne that perhaps we don't often get. And Fred's character is certainly something I want to discuss. But before that, Dan, what is your thoughts on Daphne?
Yeah, I really like Daphne in this film. I want to reiterate what everyone says. Kate is the perfect Daphne. I love Kate. I did an Instagram of like a collage of Daphne once, and she actually commented saying that playing Daphne was her highest honor. So that was sweet. I quite like they made it like a theatre kid. I'm guessing they were maybe going for the whole drama queen angle, maybe it's like a little joke, but it was different. We've seen Daphne be interpreted different ways. In terms of her wardrobe, I don't know. I think the wardrobe in general for this film, I don't think they nailed the characters that well, but they do for Curse of the Lake Monster. So maybe it's a bit like the Mystery Machine, like they do it up at the very end of the film. Maybe the gang didn't, get their costumes on point until they were officially the gang. That's my interpretation for it. Because once Curse of the Lake Monster happens, the costumes are perfect. But Daphne, I really liked how there was a little moment between her and Velma, whether she's given Velma a makeover. There's little hints that she likes Fred. So I really like the way they did Daphne in this one. I liked it.
That's good. I mean, I agree with a lot of what you were saying there. I think it's a good justification, like, oh yeah, the Mystery Machine's not done yet, they're not Mystery Inc. yet, as a way of explaining that. And I guess now on to Fred. JayBee kept this himself relatively well behaved, so all I'll say is I'm never going to complain about Robbie and Melvin in a movie. But that being said, He does not look like Fred. His character was not like Fred. It was very, to me, it was far too typical high school American movie, what they did with his character, like just trying to make him the popular guy that is a bit of a bully at the start, heavy emphasis on sport, and he really doesn't look like Fred. And I get why they couldn't make him blonde. I do fully see that. I'm not saying they should have ever attempted to do that. But I think you can almost see this movie as a non-Scooby Doo movie, if that makes sense to me personally. Like, that's how I kind of started growing up, because the color block for Scooby is so iconic that you're meant to be able to recognize these characters from 5 lines of color, and you can do that. But that was so lacking from this movie that I think certainly for a younger audience that would look for those kind of color palettes as what they associate with the characters and things like that, you kind of can almost in a way see this as what it was. Was it a Nickelodeon movie? Am I right in saying?
It was on the Cartoon Network.
Cartoon Network, that's it. And I think you can kind of see it as almost a bit of a separate entity in a way.
Yeah, well, see, I don't want to talk about like the hair because I know that people it's going to be a topic. Obviously, I just feel like it's like Be Cool Scooby Doo's art style. Whenever you talk about The Mystery Begins or Curse of the Lake Monster, it's you have to mention the hair, and it is important. But it's like if I'm not gonna like complain about Hayley Kiyoko as Velma, I'm not gonna complain about Robbie Amell's hair. But there's like I'm in two mindsets about this because at the time I imagine that it brought, like you say, a bit of a Disney Channel vibe to it, or even just let's not pay any attention to the character of Fred. Let's just have a casting call, bring in 50 dreamboats, and let's see which one of them's the biggest hunk, right? You know what I mean? It's like who wants to be a hunkionaire, and Robbie Amell won. But I think it's aged quite well because now Robbie Amell has made quite a nice career for himself playing that kind of himbo archetype. Like even watching stuff like the Babysitter movies where he's got his top off the whole time. He's so much of a lovable himbo, even as a villain, that I think it's made going back to these, at least for me, it's aged so much better because I don't just see here's random hunk they've got in to play Fred because they don't know much about Fred as a character. But it's okay. This is himbo Fred, kind of like they leaned into a bit with the Prince Junior version, and I think other like you've got other himbo Freds. I think someone could make a whole video about the himboism of Fred. So for all I didn't think much of it as a kid, I think it's aged well for me now. So I don't necessarily think he would be the top of my choice, but he's there and he's hunking. So what can you say?
On that independent kind of approach, you were saying like Disney Channel-esque thing. To me, this is kind of like everything that Daphne and Velma should have done. Like it certainly has that independent streak to it where it's not just typical gang members how they normally look, stuff like that.
Production design
But
wise,
they
it reminds me of
kept the
like
heart there.
the Minute Myth.
Yeah, I guess so. But like for me, Daphne and Velma was missing the heart, whereas they managed to incorporate all that into it, still keep it independent and in their own lane a little bit. So, Dan, I guess to you first, what's your thoughts on Fred?
Yeah, I guess I'm very biased because I love Robbie Amell. I was rewatching The Duff the other night. I think he is a really good actor. And he's acknowledged my Scooby tweets and Instagram posts many times, which he certainly doesn't have to. So I appreciate that. But no, I don't mind his interpretation. I remember when the posters and stuff first came out for this film and everyone was freaking out that Fred wasn't blonde. And I must admit that did put me off at first. But I think after a while you sort of just get over it. I'm sure there's a deleted scene for the original Scooby-Doo, the Freddie Prinze Jr. one, where it's hinted that he dyes his hair. So you can make that interpretation here, I suppose. But I don't know. I don't hate it. I know the Freddie Prinze Jr. one had that sort of arc where he was a bit big-headed, and I quite liked how in this one he starts off where he's not a bully, but he doesn't condemn his friends for bullying Shaggy, and the sort of, the girls sort of bring that up with him and say, well, you don't stop it. So I thought that was nice. I liked his interaction with Shaggy. There's a bit where obviously Velma and Daphne are in the bathroom and him and Shaggy try to find some common ground. I thought that was quite nice because that was the one thing I never liked about What's New Scooby-Doo. The sort of had jokes where Shaggy and Fred weren't really friends. I liked in this one how the sort of we're able to show how maybe they would be able to get on with each other. So yeah, I quite liked Fred. It's not my favorite version of Fred by any means, but I don't hate Fred in this one.
Oh, that's good. And I think you've mentioned a really good scene there as well. I do think this movie does go out of its way to get those different interactions. Sophie, how about you? What's your thoughts on Fred?
Well, apart from the hair situation, I mean, just even like a yellow highlighter wig, like anything. It's like the darkest brown on planet Earth. But you know, I do really like Robbie. You know, I think we all kind of feel the same way about this characteristic of Fred. But I will say there's one tiny little scene near the end, and I mean, I only rewatched it yesterday and I forgot about it. But it's when they're, I can't remember now, it's near the end, and oh yeah, when they're underground, and Fred like said to split up, and he, instead of like, you know, now he'd be like, oh, let's split up, gang, he like says, is it okay if we split up? Like he's trying to make that move into becoming the leader. Like he hasn't got there yet, but he's making sure that he like, you know, drops little breadcrumbs to like say, I'm gonna become the leader, which I thought was quite good. And you know, obviously as it's beginning and it's like an origin story, to bring that forward, I thought that was, yeah, I was impressed by that.
Yeah, and I think that seems really good for his character development as well, because I know when that he initially suggests splitting up, like you say, it's worded differently, but also it's like, oh, Daphne, you just come with me, whereas, and Velma's like, oh, well, I don't feel very included, and then when he suggests it the second time round, it's Daphne and Velma to go with him. So it does kind of show a little bit of kind of growth within the character and stuff like that. I think, like you say, little things like that are definitely well written. Okay, so I guess other than Scooby, which I think we should get into next, this is like the last bit of the gang. So I will admit, when I first watched this, I remember thinking it was brilliant and how he was animated and everything. I remember watching this back a little bit yesterday. Like, oh, okay, that maybe would be done a little bit more seamlessly now, because I think some things might look a little bit jarring.
I mean, let's not sugarcoat
But
this. Scooby
this
looks
was a
crap
long
in this.
time ago.
No, it's not timing. Just Scooby looks crap in this for quite a lot of it. But you think though, like, no, in all seriousness, it is poor, but it's Scooby Doo in a recognizable form on 2002's budget minus like 80%, you know. So it is what it is. I don't have a problem with different stuff like Be Cool Scooby Doo's art style. So this is just a medium. I don't need it to look like. Let's just put it like this: I would take this over what some of the Disney live action remakes are trying to do, where everything has to be hyper realistic. I prefer this to that. It doesn't look great, but I prefer it to that. It's just budget, and you know, I like. If I could choose for this to have an extra 10 million, yeah, why not? But it wasn't. It is what it is. But it does look crap. But there's a reason, and I can still enjoy it.
Do either of you two want to throw any thoughts out there on Scooby in this movie?
Pretty much what's been said. Like, it is what it is. It looks better than if they try to make it look realistic. I know he looks a bit cartoony, but I think if they try to make him look realistic with the budget they had, that would have probably looked absolutely frightening. So yeah, I like what we had.
I think it could have been worse, like you've both said. There was a couple of scenes where I was watching it yesterday, and like growing up as a kid, I never had any issues with it, but there certainly is times where you can tell he's added in the color palette's brighter than the rest of the lighting in the shot and things like that, and it's like, oh, okay, maybe you can tell that you don't belong there, sort of thing. But Sophie, as our, you know, artist, what do you think?
Personally, I think I like the look of the Scooby more than the other two live actions. It's just the execution of the animation that's a little bit scary. I do like the more cartoony take on it. However, like in the scene like the graveyard, he ended up being more scary than the ghost and like the dark, like scary graveyard scene. So there's pros and cons to it, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Well, let's get into the movie a little bit and the story. And obviously kind of really starts on the school bus. That's where we get like all the interactions within the gang initially. And I actually think it's quite clever to start it this way, because it allowed a dynamic to be established for each character and together also. JayBee, do you have kind of like, I don't know, a favorite character point at this part, or is there anything in particular you want to kind of say about that scene?
Yeah, see, here's the thing. I think looking back at it, my favorite dynamic is probably Fred, because for all he's complacent in the bullying, he doesn't that doesn't really say much about his character. That does set up a character arc, unlike the other two who I think, like Daphne and Velma, like they're doing good stuff. But I think you've just got Velma doing something sciencey to say to the audience, this is the clever one. You've got Daphne doing all the acting stuff to tell the audience, this is like, is the word peppy? Like this is the outgoing one. And so Fred, he could have been doing any number of things along that line, like twirling a basketball or playing with a football. But I think the fact that they make it a bit more about the story he's going to go on versus the archetype that he's going to be playing towards, I think is good. So probably Fred, story wise.
Okay, interesting. One thing that I like is when they move Shaggy next to Daphne, so that Daphne then moves, so you get to see her next to Velma, because I think that just keeps like establishing these relationships and seeing kind of the gap within the gang at this stage, so you can see them ultimately get to that end goal. Dan, what did you think to how this movie starts? Do you think that school bus was a good setting?
Yeah, I really liked it. Obviously, I know that the film in general set around school, so it made sense. It was a bit like the first Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire one, that starts on a school bus as well. I thought it was really cute. I liked how each of the characters was introduced and the name of the actor appeared as they did. Yeah, I like the dynamics. I like when Shaggy offers his like horrible like sardine and something sandwich. And I like when Velma begins to she's talking about a science project and she just ends up boring whoever's next to her. I think it really did a good job of not only establishing the Scooby characters, but this version of them. Like you said, Daphne and Fred in particular, I think it did a good job of sort of letting the audience know this is the direction we're going with the characters for this version. So yeah, I thought it was a really clever start. Really, really good.
Perfect. And Sophie?
Yeah, it's as an origin story. Before this, we kind of had a pup named Scooby Doo, and that's what people would probably go to as like their origin story. But in a different universe, for them to meet up at school for the first time, and I find that quite interesting. Definitely the bus scene. I like how quick the pace is to establish the different connections between the gang. With Daphne moving seat to seat. They don't make it quite long-winded. It's just right timing for the movie. Yeah, I like the bus scene, and obviously carrying that forward to the detention scene, but we'll go on to that coming up.
Certainly. Okay, well, I guess moving on from that, I think, like you say, all the relationships are established and that sort of thing, and then I guess really it's about storytelling. You need to kind of keep bringing in the rest of your characters. So I always think this scene's really fun, where Shaggy falls into the bin and then lands on the seat in the principal's office. Isn't there some like additional scenes where it's kind of like there was a lot of takes of that, and every time it's just Nick going ow because he like lands differently and stuff in the chair?
I think you got that on either the DVD or something. It's interesting. Again, I think the school is pretty much just generic high school, isn't it? But then again, like I prefer that to like the weird techno thing that they try to do in the Daphne and Velma movie. So yeah, I don't know if there's much to say about this, just that like you say, it's world building.
You meet the principal,
A part of
that's
me
kind of like a key character thing.
almost wishes that they would dive straight into it with like a movie, like acknowledging that we know who these characters are and stuff, just to make the ball rolling a bit quicker. But I do appreciate that they've taken time for a bit of world building.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the key things about this movie for me. For me, it can be a standalone. You don't need to be a Scooby fan to enjoy this movie. It does set up enough that it can stand independently. And like you said, it is world building. There's a lot of characters. There's characters to be introduced at this point, and we are around the time where they introduce the principal. Obviously, like skipping ahead, and 100% this is spoilers. But for me, I like this character a lot when I first met them. I don't know why, but maybe it was just my inner child at the time thought the line "philately is fun" was hilarious, and I don't know why. I think it's just because I thought the word philately was brilliant. But I didn't get any inclination at all that he was going to be the villain. I don't like it when like there's a movie that we're going to be reviewing at some point this month where who it's going to be at the unmasking, and I don't like that always. But this one, I didn't get it was them.
See, I don't know, because you don't, but at the same time, I think it depends when you watch this. Because as a kid, because they go throughout the entire time thinking that it's going to be that Vice Principal Grimes, and they kind of push that so much forward that I think I actually did think it was him as a kid. If I watched it now, maybe I would think a bit differently, but yeah, I definitely didn't at the time, and I think it was nice. It's kind of it's a bit ironic because the good thing that the principal does is try and help Shaggy make friends, which he doesn't need to do. In fact, looking back at this, I actually think it would have maybe played a little bit cleaner if Shaggy was new to the school. Because I think it almost plays like that a little bit, because you would think he's been taking the school bus with the Mystery Inc. gang for the whole of high school. It's a little bit, well, why is this principal only just talking to him now? Why doesn't he have friends? Why is that such a pivotal thing now? I think it would have played a little bit better if Shaggy was new at school at the time. But that aside, the fact that the principal's act of kindness leads to Shaggy knowing his motivation, I think is kind of clean, but it's also ironic. But yeah, I like it. I think it's a good setup.
Well, it's that world building. It gives you the reason for the crime. It's not really a crime, but for what happens in the first place. But I just think he was really nice to begin with, and I kind of like that it's not like an evil motive. It's just that he's an enthusiast.
Is it
more than anything? I like that it wasn't like, oh yeah, they're a horrible
Did
person.
he want to collect the misprint?
Yeah.
Or did he want to sell it? Because he said, oh, this is the most valuable thing in the world.
I think
it's
he
gonna
just
be
wants
all
it
mine.
for his collection. But anyway,
Yeah, I
we're skipping
respect it, I
far too
respect- I
ahead.
respect it. Principal Needle is not
Sophie, what's your thoughts on the principal?
Yeah, I think the first time I watched it, he was like an underdog for me, and I didn't expect him to be the villain. I think the story arc for him and the whole like postage stamps situation, I do quite like that. I find that quite a unique take. You know, I think the mystery all round, even though it's quite a basic one, it's quite a good one at the same time. Kind of like a cheesy one, but I think it fits with the theme of the movie. But yeah, I did enjoy his character. Yeah, I think, yeah, I wasn't expecting it, so I think he was a bit of an underdog for me.
Perfect. And Dan, how about you? Did you like the character? Did you work out that they were the villain quite early on, or were you kind of as surprised at the end as I was?
Yeah, I liked the character. I think he's a cool character, but honestly, I cannot remember what I thought the first time I watched this film. It's weird because I didn't actually watch this film until 2018. So I was like 23, 24 when I first watched this film. But I can't remember. I think maybe if only because it the other characters were a bit too obvious, maybe I guess, but I can't remember. But in terms of his motive and everything, I liked it. I liked that it was more of a basic. I know obviously it involves real ghosts at one point, but I like that it was more of a basic mystery because I feel sort of like what it should be. Because obviously the gang, they're not Mystery Inc. yet. It should just be a very sort of basic school mystery to begin with before obviously they become Mystery Inc. So yeah, I liked the character. I thought he was a good first villain for them.
Perfect. And what did we all think to the pet adoption day? Because that's, I think, the next thing that comes after this is the introduction of Scooby Doo into this movie. I think perhaps it was quite it explains it well. I think, like JayBee said, it's lots of world building. It's they try and give a reason to everything, and you know, the reason that Shaggy meets Scooby is because Scooby doesn't have an owner. He's going to be adopted and all that sort of thing. I think it's a fun dynamic. I think if you really wanted to cut this movie down a bit, this scene's quite lengthy, but it's lots of world building. JayBee, what do you think?
I just think it's cute, you know. The only thing that it is, I mean, it is a little bit long, as you say, but I think it kind of gets the point across that Scooby is so bombastic and kind of out there with his actions of affection. I mean, dogs do that anyway, but the fact that he like horrified some family is not only funny, but it also just shows that like however much Scooby is awkward, he fits in with Shaggy's personality just right. The fact that he never has an issue with when Scooby dives on him and licks him, it sets up the contrast between Shaggy and basically the rest of the world, which is nice because it's like two outsiders finding each other, which is lovely. I still am so curious about, and I don't need to overthink it, but just the actual logistics of what goes on in terms of like, I don't think Scooby was thrown off the car on purpose, but the fact that nobody goes back and looks for him or there's any type of inquiry, I think that's kind of bizarre because obviously they want Scooby gone because he's been there for a while. They want him to find a good home. So I understand them not being heartbroken. But at the same time, like for all they know, it could have been Scooby in a cage, like I don't want to say rotting, but like going to heck on the side of the road. It's
I think
such a like a RSPCA issue
I think
potentially.
you've dressed this up nicely. I genuinely think they wanted rid of him.
You
Like
reckon?
they made him the pet of the day in terms of the take this one, we want rid of this one. There's a line that says, "Oh, I'm sure today's your day. Like we've done this a lot of times. Like time to go." Sort of thing. Like I think they very much give the impression that
Well, I like to
they
think
want him
that
out the
that man
door.
is a nice man. I always
I
viewed
don't
him.
read it that way. I
I
read it as
viewed
they want rid
him
of him.
as a kind guy, almost
No.
like he feels sorry for Scooby, but he knows that he's doomed to try and get Scooby adopted to the end of time. A bit like I don't know, like it's his
Where you were going with that?
like it's his great burden to look after this thing. But I
Yeah,
always
so if it's a burden and it accidentally disappears,
okay. What I mean is,
you're not gonna file a missing dogs report.
well, no, it's like when your nan starts to like get a bit sloppier, you're kind of like, oh God, like you're getting a bit messy, but you bent through the war, so fair play to you. Like it's annoying you, but you know that they're a great person and you want the best for them. That's what I view this guy as. I always thought he was a nice guy. I didn't take it as he hated
It's
Scooby.
like when your child needs to leave home and they just don't know they need to. Like that sort of thing. Like they just keep pushing.
More like a Scooby Doo failure to launch. Like let's get Shaggy in here. That's
Okay.
ridiculous.
Sophie, what's your thoughts on the pet adoption day?
Keep laughing, but it's not that funny. That was quite sad. I can't help it. I think the adoption take, and I know that they explored it for also the Scoob movie. I think that takes quite a good way to introduce, Shaggy. I keep laughing. Shaggy and Scooby meeting for this first time. Keep laughing, but for me, the guy trying.
Oh, it's just like we're like debating the intentions
bad.
of some guy. Like it is legit though,
I
because
have
I always
completely
thought
gone.
such a different thing to you.
You saw him as a nice guy.
Yeah, like no, it's like like having a wet nurse.
No, but I'm gonna quote this guy now, and I can't get the words out my mouth.
I've got the giggles. Look at what you like. Say you were like a kid that's getting adopted, and you have a wet nurse instead of a biological mum, and she's like crying when you get adopted. Like I thought he was a really nice guy.
So the guy that's trying to get rid of Scooby, the father and daughter comes, and the daughter says that she wants Scooby, and the guy replies saying, "Really? Like, you need to hear it."
He genuinely wants rid of it. I don't know how JB ever saw this as a
It
good
is
man.
so sad, and it's like, why are you shocked that this girl wants a Scooby? Like, I know the animation's a bit dodgy in this part, but overall he comes across as a really lovable character. But the fact that the guy's so surprised that somebody is taking interest in Scooby, I mean, I find it funny, but it is just really sad and mean, and I don't like the guy at all.
No, I'd agree with you. Dan, did you pick up
Oh yeah,
on
like he
this?
says, like, oh, we're gonna be really sad to see him go. I'll get the paperwork.
Yeah,
Like,
how have you seen that? I don't get how you missed
it's
this
like that
entirely.
scene in Love Actually, when the guy thinks Colin Firth is coming to propose to the other woman. He's like, oh, I'll pay him to take you. It's like, see, it's topical.
Dan, did you pick up on it?
Yeah, no, I always felt sorry for Scooby. I thought the guy just couldn't wait to get rid of him. I doubt Scooby was treated very well. I always felt so bad for him. But I love the actual storyline of him, being the pet adoption, not getting adopted, then finding Shaggy just by happenstance. I much prefer that to like a pup named Scooby Doo where he grew up with him, or I think wasn't there one film where it does a flashback to Shaggy just buying him at a pet shop or something? I don't like that. I much prefer this version where they're like two like outsiders who find each other. But yeah, I don't think Scooby was treated very well by that
No.
person. No way.
I can't
It's
believe
almost
I'm
like,
the only one that thought that he was a nice guy.
yeah, you're crazy. But it's almost like you say, more like a Destiny kind of story to it. Like here, Scooby sees the ghost in the graveyard, he runs away in fear and just ends up like diving through Shaggy's window.
So do you guys think this guy like dressed as a ghost to scare Scooby at night, and that's why he's such like a scaredy cat? Like, are you
No.
going like a full on like he's like the Joker or something?
No, just that Scooby's an inconvenience to him.
Yeah.
Probably. It's a shame. I always thought he was a good. I thought he was a good bloke. But evidently, I've been overruled.
So, like we said, this is the introduction of Shaggy and Scooby, and it makes me wonder what the parents are actually like in this movie. Because if a dog jumped through my window when I was a kid growing up, my parents are not letting me keep that dog. No way. So, the parents in this movie must be absolutely amazing. But that leads into the montage that I know, Dan, you were referencing earlier to, is it You and I or something? But
Yeah.
this was a really cute scene, and this is one of the ones that I was trying to kind of reference earlier when I said I think Nick's acting in this is kind of underrated. We give lots of credit to Matthew Lillard, but this sequence is really good as well. JayBee, did you enjoy it?
See, because of this sequence, when I first saw it as a kid, I think I did go through a stage where I tried to like catch frisbees in my mouth, and it never went well for me. So yeah, I clearly liked it. I clearly liked it.
Sophie, did this scene inspire you in a way that wasn't just to catch frisbees in your mouth?
No, I do really like the interaction between Shaggy and Scooby in this movie. Please, I can't start laughing again. Please, I'm holding it together. I'm biting my gums. Anything that will stop me from laughing, okay? No, I do really enjoy the interaction between Scooby and Shaggy in the scene. I know this song. I watched the movie yesterday, but I remember watching the scene and I thought, well, the other day I had that tune stuck in my head. So it's quite a catchy tune, and you can relate to it quite a lot. You can look back at that scene. It's a really nice scene between the two of them.
Yeah, and Dan, I know you said right from the start you really like this scene.
Yeah, I really like the interaction between Shaggy and Scooby in general. I think right from the first scene, they're together. I think they really play off each other well. I like there's a bit where when they first meet, Shaggy thinks that Scooby's talking about roasts instead of ghosts. I thought that was quite a cute little. Probably is unintentional, but in The Witch's Ghost, there's a part where Ben Ravencroft is confused that Scooby says roast, and Velma has to correct and say no, he means ghost. So I thought that was cute. But yeah, I think the scene, the montage works. I think it because obviously it's one film, but they were able to just establish their friendship with just that one little montage. And I think the song works because if you listen to the song sort of independently, it could almost be like a love song. You could imagine someone singing it about someone like a partner, someone they're in love with, but it works as like a best friend. Like you really get the idea that Shaggy was, both Shaggy and Scooby weren't complete until they found each other. It's really sweet. I think the montage it sells it. It sells Scooby and Shaggy's friendship within a couple of minutes.
Yeah, and I think like you say, it's kind of that thing where you almost feel that Shaggy's more complete. Like in the next sequence, Scooby gets on the bus with him, and then you see a complete change of events. Like suddenly he's got someone to sit with, he's got someone that defends him when he gets bullied and all that sort of stuff. It just feels so much nicer. But obviously all that kind of stuff leads into the introduction of Gary Chalk's character when there's the crash into the new car. And I will admit, I don't know if everyone else feels this way, but to me, he is like the definition of assistant head teacher. Like when I think about my assistant head teacher at school, it was this guy. We had exactly this situation where it was quite a small head teacher that didn't get involved in anything. And whenever anything went wrong, the assistant head teacher was there, been loud, been pretty arrogant. Like there was once this time where something bad had happened in the town where I lived. And so the assistant head teacher took it upon themselves to stand at the school gates and like act like he was like the block between everybody within the school and like this kind of evil that was out. Like it was kind of, it is literally like, they even looked a bit like him, to be honest.
I used to march around with like a loudspeaker It's the weirdest thing. It's so funny, this guy.
But it was literally this though, like whenever anything went wrong in school, it was never the head teacher that got like called for. It was the assistant head teacher. And I remember once my assistant head got locked out of a classroom and he was that angry, he like threw his folder down and it broke and like papers went everywhere. And it's the sort of thing that you'd like, everyone wanted to laugh at it, but it was also like you can't, if you laugh at that, you've got detention for the rest of the year. Like, he was the one you were scared of. The head teacher was nothing compared to the assistant head. And I think that is very like, perhaps one of the things that like, I don't know, just sat with me best about this movie. Like, I physically could visualize this compared to the school that I was in. Sophie, what about you? What did you think to his character?
I think I just agree with everything that you just said. Like the most stereotypical, like second in command to run a school. Like, yeah, I mean, he nailed the character. I give him that.
Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. Dan, what about you? Was it like reminiscent for you and like when you were in school and stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I remember when I was in secondary school, I can probably count on one hand the amount of times we actually interacted with the actual head teacher, but the deputy head was they seemed to be the one in charge almost. They were the ones that always sort of would interrupt assembly, they would sort of come into your classrooms and stuff. They seem to be the ones that sort of crave the power. So yeah, great performance in this film.
He's like
Definitely.
Jafar. He doesn't want to be number two. But it's weird. I've got good memories from interviewing Gary Chalk as well, because that was, I think, our longest interview, and that was interview like number 8 or something. It was so early, but that was the one that made me more confident in being a bit edgier, because that man went on like a 10-minute tangent about when he played a character that went to see Jennifer Love Hewitt for Afternoon Delight, and by not cutting that out, you know what I mean, it changed my life forever. So yeah, shout out Gary Chalk and Your Afternoon Delight.
So this leads to detention in the library. And this is quite an integral scene. I'm pretty sure when we spoke to Kate, she said like this was the table read that they initially did. This was the first scene that, even as part of the audition process, that group did together. So, and also it's where you first start to see them finding similarities. They all like mysteries and that sort of thing. So I always really like this scene.
Yeah, it's cliche for sure. Like, if you want a group of people to meet, a good place to do it is detention, right? It's straight from the, what is it, the Breakfast Club playbook. It was Lemonade Mouth. But it's so overused because it's good and because it's effective.
And then this is where they always find their similarity. Like you said, Lemonade Mouth is an example. All of a sudden, they could all play an instrument in detention. Here, they all read a mystery book in detention. It's like, it's quite a well-used formula, but it works.
Yeah, I like it. And I like the chemistry. You know, that's something, because we spoke about all of the gang and all of the casting choices like individually at the start. But I think altogether they complement each other really nicely as well. I almost want to say even more than some of even the original cast at times, because I think that's a lot of the reason why we don't really get that established a lot in that first 2002 movie, because they're supposedly meant to be separated, but then they have a load of cool moments at the end. Whereas this, because they're like together now from now until the rest of the movie, and I think this is such a cool scene that establishes it. So yeah, I don't really think of anything that I don't like about it, except I guess you could argue maybe Shaggy not having a mystery book takes away from that dynamic, but then he's always the one that's too scared to go in anyway. So, but then I kind of think it's a bit sad, maybe a bit like Scooby, is Shaggy just kind of like, oh, these people that are talking to me, I'm gonna go along with these mysteries because I don't want to lose friends. So it's a bit sad.
It's sad. Like you said, though, it almost gives that, you could almost imagine him being the new person within the school within a lot of this. He is going out of his way to make friends. The head teacher been nice to him, things like that. I think that would have probably lent itself to the story quite well.
Then again, though, if Daphne is telling me to go into a haunted house, I'm going into that haunted house. Like, best believe. Like, I'm gonna do it.
Robbie Amell's really good in this movie, isn't he?
Yeah, I think I agree.
Okay, so Dan, what do you think about this scene? Do you think it's kind of good that they start to bring the gang together here? Do you think it's a bit too forced in that they all like mystery books and things like that?
Yeah, no, I really like this scene. Like you have said, it's a bit of a cliche sort of have a scene in detention for all the characters to sort of interact. Like you say, Breakfast Club, Lemonade Mouth. I'll throw in John Tucker Must Die because there's a similar scene there. But I think that's because it works. Like sometimes if you have characters that are so different and they wouldn't hang out ordinarily, sort of detention's a good place in a school to sort of push them together. And I like that. I like that they just all pull out a mystery book and that's sort of the little thread. Like even though they're so different, there is that similarity. And I know obviously Shaggy doesn't have a mystery book, but I think that fits. It fits Shaggy as he always is. And it kind of reminds me of in the 2002 one where Matthew Lillard says, "Oh, I'm just the guy who carries the bag," sort of thing. So I think that works. But no, I liked it, and I think as well there was quite some cute interactions there. I think is it Fred spoils it at one point, the ending of one of the novels. So I think
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
there
the
was a
one
cute
Daphne's
little
reading, and then Velma's like, I was gonna read that one next. Yeah, I really like that
yeah,
bit.
it's a cute little bit of interaction there that sort of fits their characters. So yeah, it's a bit cliche, but it works.
I love how Velma isn't even on that book yet. Yeah, she is the one at the end, like, you've ruined everything. It's just so funny.
I do like that though, because something else that I find about that's quite funny though, and I don't know why, but like normally at the end of a mystery, it's Velma that's like, and this is why, and everyone's like really shocked. So for a mystery to be spoiled for her was kind of a little bit like, can't deserve that one. So I kind of like that, even though they've not even solved the mystery together yet, and she doesn't know that she's about to become that annoying. But no, I did enjoy that. Sophie, what did you think to the library scene?
Yeah, I agree. It's really iconic, cliche to like, Breakfast Club, etc. Yes, they obviously pushed the agenda for them to be in detention and meet together, but I don't think the interactions felt forced between them. And I think it was a nice flow around the table, getting to know each other and like, Fred ruining the book and then Velma said, "Oh, you've ruined everything," sort of thing. It's quite funny and quite a light-hearted scene overall.
Yeah, I agree. It was really good. And of course, it starts off quite light-hearted, then the ghosts appear. I quite like how the villains are done for this movie. I do like that they're real ghosts as well and that magic's a thing. I know that a lot of people are kind of opposed to that in Scooby, but for me, I think with it being live action, it's kind of nice to see live action, like real villains.
Yeah, it's so weird. The mad part about this is the two main characters, really, that still actively talk and keep in communication is you've got your Shaggy and your Daphne, Kate Melton, Nick Palatas, and there's magic established in this world. Like this could almost be like or I guess in a multiverse adjacent universe to the 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo, where you've got Shaggy, Daphne, and magic exists.
I
I'd
like
love to
that.
see like a Vincent Van Gogh could show up for like a third one if they did that. That'd be cool.
Sophie, what do you think to the villains being real and it being magic that brings them to life? Do you like that?
I do like this take. I do like the design of the villains. Obviously, the animation, we'll just brush over that. But overall, I do think they look quite menacing and quite creepy. And we go back to the graveyard scene quickly. Yes, Scooby was creepier than the two ghosts, but overall, yeah, I think they're two good characters. Like I said, they were quite menacing looking, which I thought that did add the fear factor.
Definitely. And Dan, how do you feel about them?
Yeah, I remember when I first watched this, actually, I was quite surprised that they featured real ghosts. That actually took me by surprise, but I don't mind it. I really don't. I think, like you say, with Scooby, just pretend it's a multiverse, just in this universe. That's just, the gang's first mystery was a real ghost. Maybe that's why going forward, Shaggy's always worried it actually is a real ghost. And I also like that when the ghosts appear, I think Daphne hides behind Fred and Shaggy hides behind Velma. That feels very like I could imagine that happening in 1969 Scooby. Like that feels like a joke that would happen where Shaggy would hide behind Velma, which I'm pretty sure has happened. I think the whole gang have hid behind Velma at one point in the old show. So that felt very funny. I did like that.
I have an image in my head of Scooby jumping into Shaggy's arms and then Shaggy jumping into Velma's arms, and I don't know where that's from, but it's in my head.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
One
definitely
day
in
I'll
the old
find
show. They definitely used to jump in like behind and on Velma a lot because I'm sure it'd
Yeah.
be cool. Like parodied that at one point.
I do like a lot of the theories that you're putting forward. It's making me like this movie more. Certainly, the like you said, like the first villain was real, and that's why. Because there's so many unmaskings, you'd think they reach a stage where they just see a villain walk up to it and take its mask off. Like you'd think that would inevitably become a stage you get to. But if the first monster was real, then it kind of prevents that from being your initial conclusion. So I do like that theory. Ultimately the ghost bin there kind of ruins, is it the pepper alley? It's an American term thing. Yeah, pepper alley we'll go with.
The cougars.
And all of the gang are then suspended from school. They decide to start investigating. They go to the cemetery. Is this when they sneak into the school at night as well, or am I skipping ahead?
I think this is, yeah.
I do like, this is something that I like about the assistant head's character though, is like when they refer to Shaggy and Scooby as Ben and Jerry when they take them out of the freezer. That was funny. Like, for all he's meant to be like this authoritarian kind of character, he's so funny.
It was great.
It was really good.
Ben and Jerry.
And I think this is kind of like when you first introduce Scooby Snacks as well, as part of them being suspended and then expelled. They like started to spend more time at Shaggy's house. You get that nice scene, like you say, where they all go around, they try the Scooby Snacks. I'm trying to like differentiate between the two times they're at Shaggy's house, because the second time is when they do the disguises, but I feel like we're not there yet.
I'm surprised they still call this bedroom Shagwell Manor over here in the UK. I have a feeling that censorship should have probably, because when Shaggy and Scooby Doo Get a Clue, the first episode in America is called Shags to Riches, but I think in the UK DVD here it's called like Shaggy Rogers to Riches. It's like it's different on the DVD here, so I just think maybe because Shagwell Manor, like, that's what my bedroom used to be called. You know what I mean? Like, so he's on his too.
Robbie and Mel's really good in this movie. Okay, so at this point they decide, I feel like I've left stuff out of my notes. So I think this is when they need to go back to the school but in disguise. And I think this kind of again is showing, to me, this is like a nod to they're really not afraid to make this movie stand on its own 2 feet. Because quite often within Scooby-Doo, whenever they're in disguise, it cannot, or like in a different outfit, it's still the same kind of color palette, things like that. They didn't have any hesitancy in making them look like completely different people. To make Daphne have, I think it's black hair, doesn't she?
Yeah, she's just like Bellatrix or something.
Like you said, this is where we get some really nice interactions between the gang as well. So obviously Daphne's helping Velma kind of become this different character. I know this is where Shaggy and Fred talk about going to the MLE?
Oh yeah, what, Major League Eating?
Yeah. And I really like that. I would definitely go and like watch that as well. I used to watch this TV show called Man vs. Food, where it just used to be like the like most difficult eating challenges in the world, like the hottest food, the biggest burger, all this kind of stuff. Like, I would watch that too.
See, I could do the hottest food. That's what I could do. And I could do the eating ones as well, especially now. I would watch that. I'd rather watch that than like football or soccer as the Americans call it. Definitely.
Dan, how about you? Do you enjoy that scene? I like the kind of one where they are looking at different disguises to go into the school. What do you think about their new looks, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I like it. Like you say, normally if they go in disguise, there's still that color palette kind of thing, which normally in the cartoon I do like. I like them to always, like whenever they have in the What's New Scooby Doo, they have scuba gear or whatever, it's always in their colors, which I do like. But I liked in this one that they weren't afraid to just have them be different. They had obviously Velma looked very glamorous. Daphne was like a goth. I think don't know, Fred was sort of just, I don't know, that generic teen cool sort of look. And then I think Shaggy and Scooby were the bins, I think.
Yeah.
But it felt very them. It felt very these characters. I could imagine like Velma not knowing what to disguise, and Daphne's just like, oh, we'll make you look very pretty and glamorous. And yeah, it made sense for these characters what they would dress them as. I liked it.
It's almost like the Monsters Unleashed scene in a way, where they give Velma the makeover and it's Daphne that does that. Sophie, how do you feel about these disguises? Because I don't know if you want to agree with me here, but I kind of prefer how Velma especially looks here. And even Daphne's outfit might be a slight step up.
I think for the disguises, I like that then. I mean, usually I do like when it's the same colour palette, but in hindsight, when it's a disguise, you want to look as far from who you are as possible, sort of thing. So I think that works better. I'll admit, I still kind of feel the outfits are very dated in this part, probably more so than just the gang's regular outfit. My favourite outfit, well, disguise is Scooby and Shaggy in the bins.
I would agree.
I also think that's quite cartoony and it's like a nod back to the animation, the cartoon. But overall, I think they are quite a unique set of disguises and work as a disguise as well.
Yeah, they definitely do. I think, I don't know, it's just a scene that I remember always really enjoying, and they use it to sneak into the school. And I'm trying to remember kind of where things go from there.
I think that's when you've got C Ernst Half as like Coolsville's #1 dance star.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had to add that part.
And then I think from there they decide that it's time to break into Vice Principal Grimes's house.
Oh yeah.
And so that's where we first see the mystery machine. And I like that scene brings Daphne's character down to earth a little bit. It's like, oh yeah, the gardener's the one that's getting the new van. Like, I've got this one. And I think one of my favorite ever Velma lines, it's a mystery this machine still runs. I think that was really good.
Yeah, it's nice. I don't know why they decided to make Shaggy the driver, but I think it was an interesting choice. Because I would have thought that would have been a perfect time to kind of set up. I know that they introduced this actually a bit later on, surprisingly, but Fred's love for the mystery machine, I think that would have been a cool kind of thing to make that happen here. But it's nice what they do. And we've got a Huckleberry Hound Easter egg as like the bobblehead on the front, which I think was really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah. Oh, and when Shaggy turns the radio on, it's just funny. I like it a lot. There's a lot actually that I'm finding a lot of like humor in, but I think a lot of that is probably the direction of Brian Levant, because some of it's a little bit on like not the edgy side, but a bit tongue in cheek, which is what he did in stuff like the Flintstones movies and Viva Rock Vegas. So I just like the aesthetic of all of this that's going on.
I think it is a really good aesthetic. I like Vice Principal Grimes's house as well. It's almost, I don't know, a bit Wickles Manor to me.
Dude, he's got like so many books about domination. It's such a weird guy. Like, but I like him a lot. It's just, yeah, but it's quite a nice house though, really. I don't know how much like vice principals get paid, but to me, that's like that's a wham house. So I don't know if I'm making the wrong career choices, but yeah, he did well for himself.
Okay, and somehow, how is the gang get knocked out then? Is it like some spray or something?
Well, this is what annoys me, because I know that when speaking to Brian Levant, there was meant to be a chase scene where the ghost chased the gang back to the school in the mystery machine, but for budget, they had to kind of whittle that down so it was just gas.
And that van doesn't look capable of a chase scene. It looked like it was about to fall apart.
What annoys me the most is it's gas that knocks the gang out, but there's a scene like not 20 seconds earlier where Shaggy and Scooby pick up a gas mask. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know about that one.
No, that could be a bit tedious. But I guess, like you say, the important bit is this is all kind of plot devices. They end up back at the school with the hole in the ground in the gym, and they need to go down and get the time capsule. And I quite like this setting. I don't know why, I'm a bit of a history person, so I kind of like the thought of, oh, there was like another town under this town, and you can still kind of go down and see it. I don't know if you've ever seen The Ghost Whisperer, but like in that there's like a town under the town.
See, this is what I like, but even before this, I like that we almost get a bit of a 2002 movie moment where they all decide to come together because of Scooby. And I love how they all go, oh, I feel like Scooby's my dog and stuff like that. I think that to me is a perfect way to bring about the gang, but
more for Scooby than anybody as well, though, because like he's gone from nobody noticing him falling off the back of a truck to 4 people been like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna jump into this hole to help him.
It makes me wish we got the third movie, because obviously we're not meant to have the script for the third one, but we have it, and I think we sent it around to people here, not like just in general. But in that third cancelled holiday special, there was going to be a subplot with Fred and his dog runs away, and that makes him sad, as it were. But then that means Fred's line from this, "I feel like he's my dog too." That would have been cold. Like, to bring that full circle, like Fred feels the guilt and regret of his childhood, and that's what makes him love Scooby, and that's his motivation going forward. Fred would be the GOAT. I really want them to do the third one, even if it's in comic book, animation. Oh, because that would have made this line mean so much more. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but I just love all that
Oh,
type
that's
of
good.
thing, like where like lines connect with each other. It's just amazing. But yeah, I just love it. I love that Scooby's the binding force between all these characters.
And to me, this underground town, underground school is actually one of the creepiest settings I've ever seen for Scooby. And purely that's because, and I don't know if anyone else noticed it, but there's like a white snake moving in the background. And I'm petrified of snakes. I thought that was the most unnecessary, but also like petrifying thing in the world.
I quite like snakes.
Oh, it was horrible. I just didn't see the necessity for it at all. It honestly scared me so much, that bit. Sophie, what do you think to the underground school setting? Do you think it's like sufficiently creepy? Do you think it's perhaps a little bit too scary?
I always keep saying it's about the balance in like any Scooby thing. Obviously it's light-hearted and, you know, creepy at the same time. You've got the stereotypical school, you've got the houses, or Shaggy's house, and then you've got this really creepy like underground basement, and I think that really brings home like the scary creepy factor. I do think they nailed like the design of that. You know, all the shadows, like you can hardly see the gang at some points, and I think that really adds the fear factor again, which I love.
Yeah, they certainly added fear factor with this one for me. Dan, how about you? Did you like this underground school? Did you think it's quite creepy?
Yeah, I liked it. I thought the design was really good. And like we said before, this is like, I really like this as a first mystery. I like how basic it is. And I think it's really cute how everything's centered around the school. It's very much like if you were watching this and you were at school, it's something you could sort of imagine. Like there's this underground thing under your school, and like it's nice for a first mystery for the gang to sort of investigate this. But it is creepy, so it works both ways for me. I think it was a really good choice.
Yeah, I think it is, certainly. And JayBee, you'd start to give your thoughts. Do you agree that it's a good setting?
Yes, I mean, I don't want to do the logic part. I don't know how many places are actually built under, like, on top of, like, the old version. Again, that reminds me about a Ghost Whisperer. I think they did something similar in Camp Scare, I think, where there's, like, an old version, so I like it a lot. And it's a bit like Freddy Fazbear's Pizza or something. It's just a nice setting. And I do like the snakes. I would like a pet snake one day.
No. I guess kind of one point that I'd like to raise here, and this is just me being a bit of a downer on everything and kind of putting a negative spin on it, but they then come up with this idea of like, oh, we think we found it, but we need your help, and the villain goes down into the underground bit. If he's okay going down there, what did he need them for? Well, because I get in the live action movie, it's like, oh, Scooby Doo is this pure soul. He had to be the sacrifice. That's why we need Scooby. Out of any student within the school, why did it have to be those four? And not only that, but why did he need anybody? If he's the principal of the school, wait till the summer holidays when they're gone for 6 weeks. Then below the hole in the gym floor, you've got 6 weeks of your own time. Go down and have a look.
That's a good point. Yeah, because if he doesn't want to sell it, like he's not in desperate need of money, he just he
can wait till the summer, so you've got time.
Anytime.
And he goes down there, so it's not like I just don't want to have to do it myself.
Although if someone
goes down,
I mean, he doesn't want to kidnap a load of kids with the sole purpose of like Indiana Jonesing them or having them all with pickaxes looking for the time capsule. Like, I think Mystery Inc. very much fall into his lap in that he has them there, so why not use them as like, oh, well, okay.
But just have them there. They're at Vice Principal Grimes' house. He goes to his house to get them. Like he is going
That's a
out
very
of his
weird
way.
visual that he has to like pick them up one by one, dump
Yeah.
them into some vehicle, drive
He
them
is
back to
going
the
out of
school.
his way to get all four of them
That's a
there.
good
Why?
point.
If he has such abilities that he's summoned two ghosts that could go down there for him and just find out where it is, because they're flying around everywhere else, why do you need them?
I suppose though, if they wake up and he's down there, they could easily run to the police or something and he's busted. Having them down there not only traps them, but it also means that he knows where they are. And I dare say he could even shove them back down once the time capsule was
But there's
safely.
no motive. It's not like they're going to suddenly wake up and know the truth. They were never suspicious of him. He doesn't need to worry about disposing
if
of
the
them.
police go like, open up geezer, like pointing the gun down the hole, like they're only gonna find one guy and they're gonna know who he is regardless. So I get what you're saying, but I can kind of see it. It's just I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why he goes down there, but more to the point, like I know we have to be kid friendly and stuff because it's Scooby, but at that point, just get a load of stuff and just start beating him up. You know what I mean? Like, never mind the trap, just start throwing hands. I'd say.
Yeah, I think I'd probably agree. But I guess we'll kind of go over what we think of this and kind of like the summary when we decide if it's a smash or pass. I guess the kind of key bit to wrap up is just they open the time capsule, they see the stamp, there's a ceremony at the end, it's going to be reburied properly. And then we get that I'd say brilliant What's New montage where they decorate the mystery machine. You get a few kind of cuts to a live action adaptation of some of the What's New titles. I'm never gonna hate anything that's got that song in the background. Like that song is just feel good in any sense, any context. I love it. So I really like how they conclude the movie with that.
If there's
JayBee?
one piece of footage I wish we could recover from this movie, it's whatever the heck they silhouetted. You know, like when the gang were running to make it the silhouette from What's New. I want to see that as them, like them recording that.
Yes.
Because like we've got Hayley Kiyoko doing like the high knees thing, and I just want to see them all doing that because that's just really funny. But yeah, I love that it's What's New Scooby Doo because that was like kind of the where are you for me watching
me
it as a
too.
kid. So
Dan, what about you? Did you like how they concluded it at the end with that montage decorating the mystery machine, some What's New clips?
Yeah, definitely. I liked how they all came together at the end. Obviously, Shaggy said that he's named the snack Scooby Snacks. How I think Velma says the spooky goings on at the museum, sort of a what a night for a night hint. And yeah, the montage was great. I'm glad they went for What's New Scooby Doo. I know most people might say it should have been Where Are You, but What's New Scooby Doo is the superior theme song. I'm so glad they went with that. I love the little clips. I love them decorating the mystery machine. I thought it was the perfect sort of ending to then set up Curse of the Lake Monster where they are officially the gang. So yeah, I love the ending.
Perfect. Then Sophie?
Yeah, I totally agree. I always go about the pacing of the movie. Like, not once did I think it was a bit long, apart from maybe the adoption scene. And I think how they tied up at the end was just like a real nice bow at and the gift sort of thing. I like the mystery, I like the story, and then I liked how they wrapped up, the gang, they were going their separate ways and then they came back together. And I think that was a really like poignant moment and definitely a great part to end on. And then the montage with the What's New, yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, it certainly was. It was so good. And I guess by way of kind of official verdicts, really, JayBee, we'll start with you. For you, is this movie a smash or a pass?
It's a big smash. It's a pretty big smash. Like all the issues that I have with this are either just production or budget, and you can forgive that in my mind because it's just what it was. I think for what they had at their disposal in terms of that budget, I think they used it really well. Nice, simple story seemingly, but executed really well. And yeah, I like it a lot. It's a big smash. What about you, Milly?
I would agree with you. I think for me, it's got to be a smash as well. I certainly remember watching this a lot growing up, and my memory's not good with certain things, but like there's certain lines of this movie that just stay with you. Like, it's so well written. Like I said, from calling Shaggy and Scooby Ben and Jerry, that really stays with me. That it's a mystery this machine still runs. There's just so many kind of classic bits to this that makes it feel, I don't know, like just as important as some of the core material. To me,
I
this
just
is
want some
more...
justice for that pet adoption guy. I want people in the comment section to. We need a
JayBee,
solo movie
no
for that
one
guy.
other than you is gonna see him as a good guy. He
HBO
was...
Max, make it happen. Prequel series, pet adoption guy coming to a cinema near you.
No. But yeah, for me, this one is a definite smash. Sophie?
You know, like Dan, it took me a while to get around to watching these two movies. And I think, like JayBee said, you know, I've seen snippets in the past of production, you know, the thread hair, you know, just certain aspects that I'd flicked on and that maybe caught me off guard. But once you actually sit back and watch it from start to finish, as far as an origin story goes, and how, you know, even though it's quite simple, how they execute it is quite nicely rounded off. And you know, the more times I watch it, the more times I enjoy it. So for that, it's definitely a smash for me.
Perfect. And Dan?
Yeah, no, 100% a smash for me. Yeah, it took me far too long to finally watch this film. I think they're so overlooked. People will judge it before they've even seen it, but as soon as I watched it, I just thought it was such a charming, lovely film, and the sequel, which I love. And I think a lot of times when they try to modernize Scooby, sometimes it feels like they're almost embarrassed to be a Scooby project, so they try to like sort of make fun of it in a way. Whereas I think with these films, they feel like such a love letter. Like, it feels like the people who made it, the people who were in it, genuinely loved Scooby Doo. It does. Like, when you watch these films, yeah, it definitely feels like there was a lot of love involved. So this one gets a smash from me. I think every Scooby fan should give it a try. Definitely.
Perfect. So that's a unanimous smash across the board.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of by way of wrapping up this video, before we make an announcement, JayBee, do you have any community news, anything you want to share?
Just that I would like to review Curse of the Lake Monster at some point, because like it, to me, if this is the daddy of my Scooby movies, like Lake Monster's the mummy, you know. So I'm looking forward to getting to that one. If we ever get to that one at some point, hopefully.
I must make a confession on that one. I hadn't ever seen Curse of the Lake Monster until we started doing this channel.
Get off the stage.
Like, I didn't even know it was a thing.
You stink.
So I've maybe watched it about 3 times, but certainly I'd watch it again if it meant we were reviewing it. So I guess kind of final things is that we would like to make an announcement as part of a seasonal special series of interviews. We will be interviewing Kate Melton again this Saturday. So
wait, but this video goes out on Monday. It's kind of weird that we're announcing this so early, but I won't argue with that. I guess if you want to do that early, who am I to stop you?
It'll be part of a series of special Christmas interviews.
I mean, our last interview was a Velma one, so I guess this is a bit of a damage control thing, isn't it, to announce this one a bit earlier? So yeah, I like it. I like it. What do you want from me now? Oh,
Is
yeah.
that it?
Yeah, that's just merely on damage control, I guess. So let's get in the process of wrapping this up, because I've loved this. This has just been a lot of fun. Dan, where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at danfaz94.
And Sophie, where can people find you?
You
In a
can find me
non-creepy way.
You can find me on Instagram at Scooby Doo for life.
I think this might be the most we've ever laughed through a review.
Yeah, it's definitely.
No comment.
Yeah.
It's just good things about this movie, right?
You could almost say that we've had afternoon delight. Like, sorry, okay, right. That's getting cut out. But yeah, I've been delighted all throughout this. So that sounds even. This has been amazing.
So please like, comment, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.